Okay, welcome back, y'all. So now we're on chapter 7, Altered States of Consciousness. And again, I have a little quote by Edgar Allan Poe at the top of this chapter, which states, "All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream." So, chapter 7, Altered States of Consciousness. The mainstream assumption in society is that everyday waking consciousness is the truest expression of how things are in objective reality. The consensus is that people who experience visions and hallucinations are psychotic and delusional, and whilst it's normal to dream, dreams aren't real. And there is no life after death, despite claims to the contrary. But it's always possible there is something going on behind the material veil, and there is life on other dimensions that we can't see. Indeed, it appears we've been hoodwinked with materialism, as anyone who's taken DMT knows. However, we'll start with dreaming because we can all relate to this altered state of consciousness, and also because dreaming is awesome. It's literally one of my favourite things to do in this very peculiar life. We go through stages of sleep which emit different brain waves. Dreaming is most common during REM, which stands for rapid eye movement sleep. We also dream during the deepest stage of sleep, but unlike REM time, which is crazy mental and involves intense emotions, including arousal, these dreams are more procedural. It's like we're enacting a normal day, going through the motions. This is also the stage where people sleepwalk, sleep talk, and wet the bed. People might write emails, bake a pie, drive their car, have sex, or even kill someone. Psychologists tell us that dreams process the emotional content of our lives. The conjecture is that just as the body tries to heal itself, so does the mind. Dreamland is our surreal place to make sense of our emotions, like our desires and fears. Apparently, anxiety is the most common emotion experienced in dreams, and dreams enable expressing things we have repressed. They provide a safe space for our psyche to explore alternative realities, which includes all aspects of our sexuality. There's further the idea that dreams recur because there's something to be resolved consciously. There's some aspect of our life that doesn't support growth. They're highlighting something for us. However, it seems there was much more going on in dreamland. Dreams have historically been considered significant, like in Islam, that have great importance, and mystics recognize the value of dreams. They claim they meet their spirit guides in their dreams, and that dreams are a portal to other dimensions. Apparently, Paracelsus would visit people in their dreams. He purported that when sleeping, our astral body may communicate with others, and that we can exercise astral influence over another in a dream. Secret societies teach that in our dreams we perceive the spirit worlds, where we are approached by angels and demons, but upon waking we forget. They also claim our spirit body, astral body, hovers a few feet above our physical body during sleep, and for young, dreams enable access to the collective unconscious and the archetypes that dwell there. The Bible also tells us stories about people who have received messages through dreams, like Joseph interpreted a dream that saved Egypt from starvation, and Daniel interpreted dreams about future nations of the world. There's also stories about angels visiting people in their dreams, like an angel appeared to Joseph, Jesus' stepdad, in his dream. It seems our dreamscape provides some kind of space or platform enabling entities to appear. It's like visualizing our happy place or taking a trip inside, like with active imagination. It seems dreams entail a supernatural playground, a place where we can encounter both fantasy and reality, in the sense that the dream is fantasy, but supernatural reality, i.e., external metaphysical entities, can intervene in that playground. In her book, Prepare for War, Dr. Rebecca Brown mentions Amelia's terrible nightmare, whereby she was running away from a baboon. The baboon viciously bit her in the back, and when Amelia awoke, she discovered a deep bite in the flesh of her back. Brown has no doubt that the baboon was a demon. Lucid dreaming is being aware that we're dreaming when we're dreaming. It's like waking up in our dream, which is unlike normal dreaming, as usually there's no recognition of being in a dream. There's no self-awareness. I've had a few lucid dreams, and they're most peculiar because they feel so real. People use reality checks, like press a light switch on, to determine if they're dreaming. Ghastly night terrors happen at the deepest stage of sleep. During night terror bouts, people are described as bolting upright, with their eyes wide open and a look of intense fear and panic on their face. They often scream and are universally inconsolable. They usually sweat, exhibit rapid respiration, and have a rapid heart rate. They often have elaborate motor activity such as thrashing limbs, punching, swinging, or fleeing motions. So they're not baking pies, but rather fighting whatever is terrorising them in dreamland. Paracelsus maintained that spirits wishing to make use of men often act on them during their dreams. It seems he was right. Sleep paralysis also sounds ghastly. This invariably entails visits from shadow people who like to suffocate people in their beds. Those subjected to these infernal experiences can't fight back, run or hide, because they can't move. Unlike night terrors, in sleep paralysis all the muscles are paralysed and victims are awake. They're not in deep delta sleep. Thus, people have to lie there pinned to their beds and take it. Apparently, as much as 60% of people worldwide have experienced this haunted phenomenon. Psychologists say sleep paralysis happens as people are entering or leaving sleep. They advise that the person wakes up before the REM paralysis is worn off, and they concoct a vivid experience in that unpleasant, paralysed state between waking and dreaming. The powerful sense of someone being close, the overwhelming feeling of pressure on your chest and grabbing at your throat is merely a hallucination. Like night terrors, it's not real. And alien abductions? Apparently, sleep paralysis, night terrors, and alien abductions stop immediately by calling on the name of Jesus. As Stephen Bankars, who was a former New Ager but became a Christian, states, this confirms they are demons and Jesus is Lord. Contrary to the view espoused by the scientific community, Lewis Proud, author of Dark Intrusions, an investigation into the paranormal nature of sleep paralysis experience, published in 2009, believes these experiences allow access to the spirit realm. He believes they involve genuine contact and communication with incorporeal spirits. Proud has been plagued with chronic sleep paralysis since he was 17 years young and has undergone hundreds of terrifying episodes. Proud pertains to the immense consistency between sleep paralysis accounts. He asserts, now, if, as the experts say, what is experienced during sleep paralysis is only hallucinatory, then why the amazing consistency between sleep paralysis accounts, with the same themes popping up again and again? You would expect dream-related hallucinations to consist of almost anything. However, beyond the general themes, like the presence in the room and the sensation of a heavy weight on the chest, all of which are well established, Proud further pertains to phenomena like bed rocking. He has experienced this, stating that in an effort to frighten or torment him, the presence or entity started making his bed rock back and forth. But it gets worse, as sometimes the shadow people proceed to rape their victims. So-called incubus, male spirit, and succubus, female spirit, have their nasty way. This is aptly called ghost rape. For most people, these experiences are horrendous, but some think they're swell. Like actress Lucy Liu told US Magazine, her sexual encounter with a mysterious spirit was sheer bliss. Apparently, Dan Aykroyd, Bobby Brown, Anna Nicole Smith, and Kesha, the singer, have also had sex with spirits. Records of evil spirits invading bodies and forcing people to have sex dates back to medieval times and beyond. A friend of mine maintains he's had sex with succubus several times. It's also common for shamans to have spiritual spouses, and apparently these relationships are very important to them. And some people claim they have sex with their dead spouse or partners. One encounter I read about was a dead husband, and he claimed that he wanted to have anal sex with his wife because he never did it when he was alive. Lol. Incubus and succubus can apparently take on whatever form they choose, so that includes dead people. It seems ghosts of dead people are demons dressing up. But furthermore, people also claim they have out-of-body experiences with sleep paralysis. Apparently, the dark entity can pull the person, the human spirit, out their body, which seems to happen if the sleep paralysis continues. Shamans similarly say that their spirit guide pulls them out their body, and yogis, well versed in astral projection, claim a spirit guide takes them out their bodies and accompanies them on their trip to the celestial regions. It's apparently not safe to go there alone. Our little light body sticks out like a sore thumb. It's like a taxi with its light on. An out-of-body experience is an experience in which the conscious mind seems separated from the body. People usually report having ghostly bodies that can pass through solid objects. During an out-of-body experience, everything is objective and real and happens in real time. They usually happen with traumatic events. Like one of my mates had an out-of-body experience when she was raped. She said she went out her body and watched it happen within close proximity. And people who die invariably state they leave their body. Like they look at their mangled dead body post-car crash and watch paramedics fight to get them back inside. They have a bird's eye view, then they're back looking at them from their physical eyes. However, with near-death experiences, people further talk about having a trip down memory lane and a dark tunnel with a light at the end. Whatever happens, that light better be there. Some people claim they go to heaven and see loved ones, whereas others claim they go to hell. Like Ian McCormack believes he went to hell. He was living the Epicurean life in Mauritius until he was stung by 5 box jellyfish when diving one night. He was taken to the hospital but subsequently died. He was dead for approximately 15 minutes. He remembers closing his eyes, thinking he would open them in a minute. He just needed a small break from the ordeal of dying, but then he slipped away and woke up in the dark. He recounts that he sat upright, completely awake. He found himself in a dark abyss with a palpable evil presence. He said, "Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and tried to find the light switch? Well, I was trying to find the light switch and I couldn't seem to find it. I was trying to touch something and I was moving around, but there was nothing there. I was not even bumping into anything. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I lifted my hand to where my face was and it went straight through where my face should have been. It was a terrifying experience. I knew right there and then I was me, Ian McCormack, standing there but without a body. I had the sensation and the feeling that I had a body, but I had nothing physical to touch. Near-death experiences seem to suggest that death is illusory since consciousness survives. Indeed, people describe it as more expansive, senses seem more real and vivid. This suggests the brain is a receiver of consciousness, a conduit rather than a producer. Jung also had a near-death experience, but his seems more like an astral trip. It's understood we get a DMT dump at death, which transports us to some interesting places, like heaven or hell or DMT space. It thus seems there's a difference between out-of-body experiences and astral projection, as the latter can entail going beyond the physical plane to the astral plane, which is populated by all kinds of interesting creatures. Astral projection is one of the most popular New Age practices. As touched on, through occult practices like chanting, meditation, and visualization, we can learn to free or exteriorize our astral bodies. Dr. Brown informs that legends about witches flying on broomsticks are a symbolic representation of astral projection. The Catholic Church, who practice this, call this bilocation. People report feeling vibrations when their astral body leaves their physical body, which they describe as a strange sensation. Whilst some researchers contend that astral projection is really lucid dreaming, others counter that only conscious departure from the body is astral projection, which is not the same as dreaming, however lucid. Astral projection takes an out-of-body experience to a new level, literally. That said, people can experience astral projection via lucid dreaming, like Stephen Barkhouse, for example, said that happened to him. Thus, he was having a lucid dream, which he regularly had, but he came across a black and red-skinned lizard-like being who featured a third eye. He was sucked into its third eye, and everything went black for about 3 seconds. When he opened his eyes, he found himself awake and hovering about 4 feet above his physical body. He explains how hard it was to get back into his physical body. But further, when he eventually did get back into his body, a moment later he succumbed to sleep paralysis. He felt a buzzing at his forehead and was pulled back out again. Interestingly, a Marine who had a near-death experience and went to hell said he met a demon who was 13 feet tall with red and black skin. It was muscular and bald and looked like a snake with golden split pupils. The demon answered the Marine's thought in his head, like the Marine wondered how tall it was and the demon told him. It seems Bankars and the Marine met the same demon or the same race. It's noted that people communicate telepathically in the spirit world. Telepathy seems to be an attribute of our spirit body, along with our astral senses as perceived in our dreams. Paracelsus explains the corporal world and spiritual world are one, as the astral world interpenetrates our world. The astral world can be conceived like blades of a fan, i.e. we can see the blades when they're moving slowly, but when they go much faster we can't see them. It's said etheric and more subtle bodies vibrate at a much higher speed than physical bodies, so we can't see them. Presumably this accounts for the buzzing vibrations at a higher frequency when people leave their bodies. So, whilst we live in our physical reality, spiritual beings live in their own spirit world. It's like we operate at different frequencies in a multidimensional universe. Paracelsus highlights that spirits have varying levels of intelligence and their characters differ widely. But furthermore, they like to be near us, and some malevolent spirits seek to attach themselves to us. So, they're like autonomous complexes or archetype seeking expression. It's noted that lucid dreaming is vital for Tibetan Buddhists as it involves spiritual preparation for death. Taoism and Buddhism assert the worlds we see in our dreams are more or less identical to the worlds we experience after death. Death is seen as a dreamlike condition. According to yogis, the astral world is a term that refers to all the planes above the physical plane, and we go there when we die. Our soul leaves our body, and after a period of slumber, we go to our soul level in tandem with our spiritual development, where we meet like-minded souls, and then we reincarnate. Maybe life after death is like a lucid dream, but it's real. Like people who fall down, like a lead weight no less, are really falling down to hell. What a nightmare. The Bible tells us there's 3 heavens, and contrary to John Lennon's ideation, there is a hell below us. It's a real place of burning and torment. We dwell in the first heaven, which is earth. The second heaven is the firmament, which is like a dome shielding the first heaven. It's where the stars are. And God's heaven is the third heaven. It seems earthbound spirits, namely demons, are in the first heaven, whereas more advanced spirits like angels are active in the second heaven. There's also angels in God's third heaven and all kinds of interesting angelic creatures. Howard Pittman, a Baptist minister for 35 years, claimed he had a near-death experience and went to the second and third heaven. In his book Placebo, which was published in 1999, he wrote, "When the angels lifted my spirit from my body, they carried me immediately to the second heaven. We did not have to leave that hospital room in order to enter the second heaven. We entered there, in that same room where my body was, just passing through a dimensional wall. It is a wall which flesh cannot pass through, only spirit. As we moved through that dimension wall into the second heaven, I found myself in an entirely different world, far different from anything I had ever imagined. This world was a place occupied by spirit beings, as vast in number as the sands of the seashore. These beings were demons or fallen angels, and were in thousands of different forms. Some of them were so morbid and revolting that I was almost to the point of nausea. As mentioned, shamans are partial to going to the sky, which seems to be the second heaven. They advise that the most commonly seen spirit beings, which appear to have pliable, semi-transparent bodies, are snakes and half-human, half-animal hybrids. But apparently there's thousands of different types of spiritual entities. Some are revolting, some are like animals, and some of them are like human giants, which is interesting. There's also aliens, including greys and UFOs, and people see Hindu gods with their flailing arms. So it seems to be DMT space. Terence McKenna, who was renowned for partaking in psychedelics, including ayahuasca, proposed that psychedelics enable trans-dimensional travel. He proposed that DMT sent one to a parallel dimension, enabling an individual to encounter higher dimensional entities. He described the experience as bursting through a membrane into DMT space. We enter the ecology of souls. He mused that these entities could be ancestors or spirits of the earth. He also maintained that what people see is already there, we just don't see it normally. McKenna further elaborated that people can channel these entities and become possessed by them, like he got information from a being called Logos. He said, it was as though my ordinary, rather humdrum personality had simply been turned off, and speaking through me was the voice of another, a voice that was steady, unhesitating, and articulate, a voice seeking to inform others about the power and promise of psychedelic dimensions. So these entities want to take us to DMT space and frequent their turf. He also cautioned that some of them are tricksters, they're deceivers, so we need to keep our wits about us. Meditation and practices like Kundalini Yoga can also catapult people into the spirit world. Black, in his book, The Secret History of the Universe, or the World rather, published in 2010, highlights with regards to Indian adepts, at the height of their meditations, a rush of energy from the base of the spine would travel through the middle artery via the heart to the head. Sometimes this energy was thought of as being like a snake, which rose up through the spine into the skull and bit at the point just behind the bridge of the nose. This bite released an ecstatic bolt of lightning that catapulted them into another dimension. Kundalini is known as serpent power. It's purported that we have a coiled serpent sleeping at the base of our spine, but we can wake it up to get some free ecstasy. We can become enlightened. Kundalini produces interesting states of consciousness, but it's not all happy, euphoric days. Kundalini is a very powerful force, which produces an array of physical and mental disorders. The most common manifestations of Kundalini include uncontrollable, unmotivated, and unnatural laughter, jerking, crying, roaring like a lion, barking like a dog, hissing like a snake, and other animal sounds. Apparently increasing numbers of people are having spontaneous Kundalini awakenings, otherwise known as acute psychosis. In summary, the mind is a trip, and the sheeple are largely unaware because trusty science assures them there is no spirit world or spirit body. They insist that out-of-body experiences are a function of consciousness, like dissociative states, and they render near-death experiences nothing more than a dying brain. Dying observes the interplay between consciousness and unconsciousness, and a surge of interesting chemicals. We're also told that dying brain activity accounts for deathbed visions, like when people smell flowers or hear beautiful music or see angels or deceased others or demons that no one else witnesses. Contrary to the scientific assumption, I surmise that the sheeple will get the shock of their lives when they die. Their fear of death and life will reach its climax. Okay, that's finished, so we will go on to chapter 8.